familiar with that piece of property. I'm not sure where that is. I never heard that name on the bylaw.
Yeah. And I've talked to some Wadleys I know. They don't know them because I thought
I'll try to look on the map. And
yeah.
I can,
okay. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take any action tonight because I didn't recommend any action tonight because I figured you guys, someone might know.
I should be able to find something out about it.
We've done searches and I believe that we sent them several letters that came back and
Signed for it.
yeah, and they signed.
Oh,
they signed for it, but they didn't.
Yeah, let's put the same date down as we've got for the first one. Yeah, see, you're all in favor of this because you won't be here.
I won't be here.
Yeah.
I'll go vote for anything.
It'll be happiness.
Okay, hold on. And I don't know if anyone knows these folks. We went up and checked, knocked on the door. There were people there. They didn't respond to the door, but I want to work with them. I think that we may be able to help these folks out in some way. Melanie, these also were sent, but we never received anything back. So they didn't sign for the, but it is occupied. The building is occupied.
Same date.
Is
Yep.
it lakefront property?
No. So we'll notify them all by letters, or I'll go to the doors and talk to them if I can.
I just think we ought to also be aware, the board should be aware, is that we have policies in place that requires us to do certain things at a certain time.
Yeah.
And these are taxpayers' dollars. So
Right.
we've had several times in the past, and we've even allowed payments, which we were breaking the law. Once it was brought to our attention, we had to stop doing that. So it's just, I think we need to be on top of what our obligation is to the taxpayer, even though we have hearts, but still.
And the policy is that once we decide to do something with it, we follow through on that policy. They get the right to pay everything up one last time. And then,
I think we're being fair by giving them that time right now. I mean, 'cause it's not being fair to the other taxpayers.
climate change. So with that, ends the foreclosure issue. We'll send letters out to those folks and or contact them personally if we can, and move forward. And Ernie, if you if you know that property, if you could call me.
I'll try to remember. I'll look tonight before I leave. Look it up, see where it is. I'm familiar with Valley, the whole length there, and I don't recognize that name.
Is that a residence or just a lot?
It's a lot.
Trying to tell us before the 18th. I'll find out before.
Okay, gentlemen, we have a climate change resolution that they would like the town to sign. I understand there's some folks here that want to talk about that.
Yep. Peter Garrett is the individual that's leading the effort for the Central Maine Citizens for Climate Change. I've told him he could have 10 minutes to present a presentation for you folks.
Yeah, thank you. You don't know me, perhaps, and you can tell that I'm not from Maine. But I had the good sense to marry a girl from Maine, and we live on the same 100 acres that parents bought a number of years ago, and that's in Winslow. When I came to Maine in 1979, shortly after that, I was hired by the DEP, and I became the state's first hazardous waste hydrogeologist, which is when I met Denny. He was working in the Air Bureau at the time. And after that, I headed a small consulting firm, and we dealt with groundwater contamination from leaking gasoline tanks. And then I worked on going to get groundwater clean water for towns from actually Portland to Castine, all over the place. And I'm coming here as a fiscal conservative. And like you, I don't like spending money unreasonably, and I like things to be fair. And I want to I'd like you to bear that in mind as I talk about, I guess, climate. I followed Susan Collins when she addressed the Senate in October. I don't know if you caught up with that, but she was talking about the Government Accounting Office for climate change costs, the recovery costs. And you may have heard that in, I guess, 2017, of course, we had all kinds of very severe hurricanes, nothing like they've never seen in, I guess, Houston, and wildfires throughout the West, but particularly in California. All of those seem to have a climate component, a climate change component. Something had changed. And of the 17 events that cost in recovery more than $1 billion bucks, there were the total cost was 306 billion for the year. So I did some math, and I divided the 306 billion by the 325 million in this country. It turns out that every one of us, men, women, and children, are contributing $941 in tax to recover from those events. So putting that into a Belgrade picture, multiply the 941 by the population of this town, which is 3,189, I looked that up. It's approximately $3 million that we are paying out for recovery of these things. Okay, you would probably say, as I do, and many others of course do, that hurricanes and wildfires have happened before and they will happen again. But the fact is that the consensus of climate scientists the world over is that climate change is here, that it does increase the size and I guess intensity of weather events of various kinds, is caused by humans and is primarily the result of CO2 emissions coming from burning of carbon fuels. That's coal, oil, and natural gas. The unfairness I don't like is that some people get to experience climate change more than others, harsher than others. People who live in low-lying areas, including the coast of Maine, will be severely impacted by rising sea levels. Sea levels are already rising faster than they have at the end of the last ice age. People in hurricane-prone states are likely to experience increasingly violent storms, and people in Maine, including all of us, I'm sure, are impacted by infestation of ticks, which weren't really here when I first came to Maine, and I'm sure you have more of a history on that. The warmer oceans have already shifted lobster populations further north, and the current thinking is that within a few decades they will be beyond Maine. They will be shifted further north as the Gulf of Maine is warming. Worst of all, of course, climate change is not just a static thing. We're experiencing climate change. No, it's more like a trajectory. It's going off further. So as long as we continue pumping carbon dioxide into the air, it'll get worse. And it's already affecting the economy. Worse will come, according to Senator Collins, from her reading of the GAO report. She says it'll soon be up to 6 trillion. I don't know whether that's every year. She didn't make that terribly clear, but it's a hell of a big number anyway. But Belgrade is famous for its lakes. I don't need to tell you that, but the Maine Lake Society, which is based here, as you know, notes that the season of ice between ice in and ice out is getting shorter, and is shorter by about a month from not very long ago. And with that, the more exposed water comes warmer water during summer, and you get stratification, you get an offset by waters at the bottom, more blue-green algae are likely. And the worst thing that I don't like to even think about is that you'll be exposed to the same kind of thing that devastated China Lake. I'm not predicting that, it's just that Main Lake Society is particularly concerned about your lakes amongst others in Maine. So of course, if your lakes get a bad reputation, the property tax goes down. So I'm coming to you today to ask you to consider a solution, a conservative economic solution to climate change, and it's called carbon fee and dividend. And I gave you, I think you got some of those things, so you know a bit about it, but I'll go over it shortly. It was developed by none other than George Shultz, who was the Secretary of the Treasury, President Reagan, and it puts a price on carbon fuels, on the amount of CO2 that they take, that they give off. About 1,000 companies, owners of coal mines, oil wells, gas wells, would be paying that fee. And all of the dividend, all of the money would come back from that fee to all of us, citizens of the US, in equal shares per household as a dividend. Raising the fee would not only do away with all subsidies, not only subsidies to solar and wind, but also to the oil companies that currently get quite a lot of subsidy. In addition, there would be a border adjustment to protect American firms exporting or competing with products we've made in countries that don't have a fee. And without carbon fee and dividend, however, we carry on as we have been doing, and our children and grandchildren will be the ones unfairly experiencing our lack of foresight. That's what I consider to be unfair. With carbon fee and dividend, a whole new industrial revolution is likely, because we have to invent all kinds of new ways of doing things. You've probably heard about electric vehicles. Well, they would be coming in big time with that. Economic modeling of the plan shows that within 20 years, CO2 emissions would go down 50%. 2.8 million new jobs will come about as a result of this. The GDP will grow, and with a bonus on health for all of us because of cleaner air. And 70% of the people in the country will receive more from the dividend than they will be paying out in extra costs for things. Like the cost of gas, of course, will go up. So I conclude by asking you, selectmen at Belgrade, to follow the town of Fairfield and cities of Bangor and Portland so far, to take a lead in endorsing carbon fee and dividend. As you know, the main state motto is basically "I lead." Here we go. So I'm asking you to take a lead that Congress should follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Any?
I would request board to be all before you Governor Ritchie, person, it's Steve McGrath, McGrath.
Like the pond.
But to me, they're picking winners and go with clean energy, get a dividend. That seems unfair. Another lot of different testimony from into it. Happy to, this gentleman said he couldn't make it. Happy to come in and
Yes,
So David Hollinger, I live in Belgrade. I just wanted, not to pat my own ego, just to tell you that I'm not coming as kind of a general observer. Went to the University of New England. I have a degree in marine biology and minor in oceanography. The way I got that minor was by doing research funded by NASA, studying the health of oceans, both in the Gulf of Maine and the Gulf of Mexico, and georectifying sea satellite images to learn about what we can infer through satellite imagery, so that we can learn about the oceans in large swaths instead of having to have somebody go out and look at every particular place in the ocean. So I come from the 15 plus years since I graduated from the University of New England. I've been teaching an Earth System Science class. A large part of that is on climate science and climate systems. So I guess I'm coming at this with a little bit more information than a kind of casual observer. As I looked at this information, I guess I would echo what Penny is saying. I'm more than happy. I don't want to get too far into the weeds if it is going to start glazing people's eyes over, but a lot of the data that this is based on the information that I have here, which was the stuff that came to you guys, is really coming from a lot of the IPCC work. And the IPCC, which was founded in the late 80s, early 90s, and has done work since then, certainly, was the driving force behind the Kyoto Protocol, which was something that was signed by President Clinton in 1997. That then created something called the Oregon Treaty, which was several thousand scientists that said, well, wait a minute, this whole IPCC process is totally wrong. Because what's happening is data is coming from scientists going to government officials. They are distilling it and making recommendations to government bodies. The scientists backed up and said, this is not at all what our research said. This is not at all what's going on, according to what we found. But we're shut down. That's why the Oregon Treaty was signed by, probably, I think it was 1,800 scientists to President Bush, not to renew the Kyoto Protocol. Same thing that brought us out. Because the biggest problem with all of this is that it doesn't include China and India. So we can do all the work we want to, but when China goes on burning dirty coal all they want, and they've said, thanks a lot, international community, we were going to do whatever we want. We can do all of it we want, and it's not going to do anything. There are much bigger issues at stake. And so before I would urge you to sign on to anything like this that is going to pick winners and losers, it is going to unfairly tax people for using things that is suspect at best. And as a science teacher, I would tell my students, whenever you see something like a consensus, there's very little consensus on anything in science. About the only thing that we take as laws are Newton's. So we constantly are studying, and so to say that there's a consensus in a field that is maybe 25 to 30 years old and that has reliable firsthand meteorological data for maybe the last 125 years, to say that there's this significant consensus worldwide all over the place and every scientist agrees with this and all that stuff is suspect, to say the least. So there is considerable debate about it. There's considerable debate about the premise on which this whole thing is founded. And that was the biggest thing that I wanted to kind of bring to your attention, is that we can get into the weeds of what all those things are, but the foundation of this premise is significantly suspect.
Penny.
I believe I understood him to say. One was
Nice rain, by the way.
was the forest fires out in California. I understand that forests have and managed it well. Old stuff, new stuff. Wouldn't wouldn't have learned to manage that. Opinion. And then there was some mentioned in
I lived there for 25 years. Every year they have forest fires. Every year the mud slides down the hills with houses attached. Every single year. It's just the way it is. Okay, any more discussion from the audience? Seeing none, gentlemen? I look to you, huh?
I'd like to hear the other side of the story. I think we're hearing, just like you said, one side. I mean, there's always two sides to the story. Hear the other side.
Mr. Barrett?
Just a question to Mr. Garrett. Garrett, right?
Garrett, yes.
Well, if this was passed, what are you going to do with it?
I'm part of a group called Citizens Climate Lobby. And it's a bunch of volunteers. I'm a volunteer. And what we do is we meet with all members of Congress. And obviously, I, coming from Maine, and others from Maine would pay particular attention to the Maine members of Congress. And so, if Belgrade goes ahead with this and signs onto this, we would let them know. We would let the 4 members of Congress definitely know that we are joined with other towns and cities.
So it's all going to go to your lobbying effort?
Yes, yes. But obviously, they want to know what people in Maine are thinking, and as you know, the way it's supposed to work is that they pay attention to what we're thinking.
Be nice, huh?
It'd be nice if that happened.
Any more discussion, gentlemen? I have one question. The 100 companies that are going to pay the surcharge, where are they going to get their money at?
Oh, the 1,000, it's approximately 1,000.
Where's their money coming from?
That money, that they will have to raise the price of things.
Of course they will. So from us.
Yeah, eventually, well, that's the beauty of a dividend, because you would get money that would enable you to make the choice. When you talk, I heard both of you talk about winners and losers. The government is not involved in winners and losers. This is making it for a free market such that you, all of us, who get a dividend would make the choice. What am I going to, what's going to win with my money? If it's winners and losers, it's your choice. And talking about a free market, not really a free market when there is an enormous subsidies for oil and gas and coal, and has been basically since they were found, and they're still there. And here's another thing which I didn't mention here, but we all put our garbage roadside, and you town officials arrange for it to be taken away.
Not us.
Well, not
It's
that.
taken care of.
It's taken care of, and you pay for it. The CO2 emissions and other emissions that come, we're not paying for. They go up in the air for free. The point I'm trying to make is that I beg to differ with you about the consensus on climate scientists. I mean, I won't say that it's 100%, but that's consensus is not always quite like that. But the consensus amongst climate scientists the world over is that CO2 emissions in the air is actually, which is 45%, I believe, above what it was before the Industrial Revolution, when it was pretty well steady, is the cause of this. And other things are likely to happen. Well, you want me to tell you that ice in Greenland is melting. Ice in the Arctic will soon be all gone. What will that do?
The ice in the Arctic
This
melting
is-
will not do anything because it's already in the water.
I got it. But the Arctic
Well, then
Ocean,
don't make it sound like it's gonna cause the sea levels to rise, because it's already in the water. The
Well-
Antarctic and Greenland.
Okay, that's good.
Sorry.
Any more discussion, gentlemen?
Well, I'd just like to insert the fact there's already a lot of stuff taking place. A lot of mandates, like gasoline vehicles are basically gonna be outlawed. That's one of the ways. And as far as China, there's nothing we can do about China. And we still continue to ship coal to China. And it's horrible, but they have already started implementing their rules and regulations. Avoid that. I listen to the news every day, I follow that. I hear what you're saying about the ice in the winters. I'm a snowmobiler. And it's definitely a lot shorter than it used to be. Maple syrup runs a lot earlier than it used to be. And I used to be really on board with your way of thinking, but the last year and a half or so, I've come to realize there are a lot of things already taking place. Right here in the state of Maine, we have wind energy now, and they're taking advantage of the solar. We have things that are generating with tidal generation, so there's a lot of things that are going on. And to try to mandate something onto 1,000 companies or whatever it is, and think that we're gonna benefit from that. I would have, a year and a half ago, I would have agreed with you. Today, I think there's a lot of things going on that are trying to keep us going in the right direction. Climate change is inevitable. The world used to be free of ice mostly, and we're gonna go back there. We're going there faster. Hopefully we can slow it down. That's just my view. I'm not no expert, but I follow that stuff very closely. And
We want to hear the other side, gentlemen.
Sure.
Fine with me. I mean, I'm not willing to sign on to this.
No, I'm not, yeah.
So, I mean, not without, things just don't add up here.
Penny, can you give that card to
Absolutely.
town manager, and we'll get him to come in and talk to us also.
Make a comment.
Yeah.
I would be hesitant to do this because
That was gonna be my next question.
I'm
Why,
sorry.
that was gonna be my next question. I was gonna ask, how did you pick Belgrade? I mean, if you went to, you've been to Fairfield, you've been to Bangor, Portland.
yes, I'm actually working through all of the central Maine towns, and I got into conversation with actually somebody who's not here because she happens to be out of town. Bonnie Salmons is a resident of Belgrade, and she suggested that I call over to Denny. I know Denny anyway, and so.
I feel bad for you.
Probably a lot of people.
Say much for your reputation.
Thank you, that answers my question.
Okay, gentlemen, with your permission, we'll get somebody to come in and talk to the board about it from the governor's office.
At a later date.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate the information.
Table us.
Sure, thank you.
Well, we don't really table it, we're not acting.
We're not,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
And thank all of you who spoke. We appreciate it. MDOT Municipal State Agreement. Town Manager, you have some,
Yes, we received this.
and Jack had some questions.
Yes. And I asked our road commissioner to be here just to help. In fact, he provides some insights. So we received this about a week ago, and this is the municipal state agreement that Mr. Martin from Maine DOT said that he would have to sign sometime in late February. So I went through it. I think you see my comments in the package that you have. It's not highlighted, but I starred or underlined things, and I've written them down in the memo that I passed on to you folks. The first issue, and I think it's the one issue that we really should resolve tonight, because we're getting the annual report ready to go out, and that will have the warrant in it. It was the payment of the extra, the money that the town owes as its share of the construction and engineering costs. What you're estimated now, they were estimated to be 60,000. In this particular agreement, they went up to 60,600. And we had a warrant article, number 45, I believe it was, that requested that money this year. Based on their invoicing schedule that's in Appendix A, it won't be invoiced but 50% this year and 50% next year. So you may want to withdraw that warrant article because it's not needed this year. And I think, Ernie, you had indicated that might be the case. So that's the one issue tonight that I really would like to have decided whether you want to or not, is to have that dropped off the warrant.
If it's not needed, why?
Not needed this year.
That's right, not needed this year, why tax people on this year?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so would you vote so that I can?
Yes.
I'll make
Do
that
I
motion.
have a motion and a second? Do I have a second? I have a second to drop that off the warrant. All those, any discussion?
Right?
Pardon?
Well, we already have more than.
We have more than enough to cover
Yeah.
the initial half.
Oh, okay. Good. And next year we'd have to go for.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? It's off.
Next year we'll have the right number too.
That's right.
Question,
Yeah.
the work on the sidewalk is going to go forward starting this year. If the town in another year doesn't pass the other half of it, what's the resolution?
Well,
On the sidewalk?
yeah, it's a valid question. It's something I was thinking about today. And the answer, I don't know if you want to hear, at least the answer that I would think would happen. If the town fails to pass that warrant article, I think the board would be responsible to come up with that money, I believe.
I guess, I'd just like to, it's a good point, Jack, but I don't think the taxpayers in this town are going to try to stip the state for doing
They
that
have
work.
never done that, and
But it is a point that we should be aware of, but we're looking at really, it's really a very small amount of money. And
No, I would agree. I just wanted to make the point that
it's an
someone's going to pay
obligation
for it.
we owe,
Yeah.
the taxpayers are going to hold.
Yep. Howard?
Didn't we as a town agree to the project?
Yes.
Then
That's a town problem.
I would think that wasn't gonna be much issue with
Well,
whether it's approved on a warrant article or not. It's,
It has to be raised.
You have to raise the money, but
yeah,
I just don't see them voting down something like that for the town. I just don't see it.
we raised a large chunk of money quite a few years back, probably
Back in
5 years.
2000.
Oh, yeah, was it 2000? So it was a long time ago, on an anticipation how much it was going to be. And now the number is bigger, but we have enough to do, since it's 2 bills, just to put it off. Still, but the main thing is, I think the primary thing is once the bid comes in, and we know what the number is for the extra, for the brick sidewalks and all that, those dollars have to be in our coffers.
Yeah.
Before we agree for them to do the work.
Right, I was going to bring that up next.
Yeah, no, but that's the only, we'll talk about that.
I have a question. Lowest acceptable responsive responsible bid. What is that? Is that like best value?
No, they're going to look to make sure that all of the bid that they accept will be the lowest cost bid. But it's got to, in their, as I understand it, in their analysis, it has to be something that can be done for that price. It can't just be the low bid. It's got to be a responsible bid, able to complete the project.
Realistic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, next one.
So I brought this issue about the payment schedule, the payment issue under Appendix A, and it specifies that only 50% of the construction costs in construction engineering based on the total bid price will be invoiced initially. I raise that issue because the bid price may be higher than what is specified in this agreement, just to let you know that if it's higher, then we may have to come up with more money, number one. Also, there's another point I'm making here, that you have 5 days after the bids have come in and been selected to respond to that issue. So that's just an awareness point.
Yes, it will, too. Because you can't start a business, start a job, then stop it in the middle and come back and do it again.
Yeah.
It's not feasible.
Under Part C, it says 200%, that was a typo on my part. It indicates that 100% of all of the additional work requested by the municipality, or an estimated of $441,870. That's the portion that the Belgrade, Friends of Belgrade Lake Village have committed to pay, would be invoiced 100%. My question on that, and maybe it's just because of my interpretation, is when you look at the invoice schedule, it's invoiced 50% and 50%. 50% in June, May of this year, and 50% in June of next year. But my understanding is we should have it all in the coffers at one time. At least that's my understanding of the agreement that you made with the village folks. Is that right? That we were all, you were going to provide it this year. So that's the point I'm raising there.
The agreement was that they had to have all the amount of money based on the contracted price, and then we would sign off for them to go forward with the project. I thought we was, as a board, talking about having an account established like the library,
Yep.
you know, with our bank. That way it would be there and it could be generating some interest and so forth. Because there was some other dollars there for maintenance, it was supposed to be in part of that.
Okay. So that we would, once, oh, I'm sorry,
Do you have a question?
The money for the maintenance on an ongoing basis will be a separate account.
right.
Yep, absolutely.
There was a discussion about that in the past.
Yep.
So are you asking for all of the money, even though
That-
it's not going to be invoiced until, half in 18, half in 19?
That's my understanding of what the town had agreed to. Is that fair?
That's
just my understanding.
The reasoning for that thought process is that when we sign the contract with the state, we're obligated, period, no matter when they bill us.
Yep.
Because it's not the taxpayers' dollars, we have to have those, otherwise we're putting the taxpayer at jeopardy. That was the whole understanding of it, so. All those dollars, whatever it is, would have to be put into an account where we'd be drawing interest of.
And who would receive that interest on that account?
Whatever was left over would come back to you people, and then it could go toward, or you might want to just put it into the maintenance account. The interest would not be the town's. All we're going to be obligated to do is to pay both invoices. So we just have to know for sure that the money is there on that part of the project.
Well, we do have that money available now. And I do have the contract, so it's just not questioning, just affirming what it is that we're talking about. So it's on page 2 of our contract. It says, Friends shall pay to the town the full amount of the cost of the sidewalk lighting and the brick sidewalks as determined and estimated to be, at that point, it was $495,873. No later than a certain date to be determined by the town, such date to be prior to the main dot deadline for ordering the materials. So do you feel that you need the money all at once?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just basically, once the state agrees on a bid, then we'll have a number. And at that point, before we can give, the point when we would want the money is when we say we're going to sign on the dotted line and approve that part of the project. We need to have those dollars. So on that given date, we could do the exchange. You give us the money, we sign, the state does their thing and gets the project going. Otherwise, because once we sign, we can't back out.
I
So-
understand that, and, you know, we have the funds available at this time. It's
Yep.
just who is, not to belabor the point, it's just who's controlling. If the payment is due in 2 parts for you to provide to the state, who would control that second half for that second year? And is it the same concept that you're using for your paying your $60,600 of paying it in 2 parts? Just
Well, yeah, here, my understanding, having read the contract, just what you read, is that the town would receive the full amount based on the bid price. We'd know what the actual cost, at least from what we get back from the bids, is. Yeah.
And the town would control it.
And it would come to the town, it would be in our account. We'd establish an account, it would be in an account for those funds. And then we would pay that price, the bid price, out of that account based on their invoicing, which is a 2-part invoice.
right, over the 2 different years.
Yeah.
And the interest from those funds would come back to the Friends to be used for.
That's what I didn't think I read that in the contract, but that's what I heard Ernie say.
That's
Well,
what should be in the contract.
Yeah, it should,
Yeah.
we're not looking to make any money. All we want to do is pay the bill. When the state hands us the bill, we want to pay it.
Absolutely.
And that's it. Other than that, the rest of the money is yours. So if for some reason it comes in $100,000 less, that's your money, not the town.
I just think it's important just to clarify, you know, publicly how that would be. Thank you.
Jack?
And then as you go through the contract from the state, you know, you'll let us know ahead of time, obviously, when that money
Is
will
due.
be expected.
Yeah, absolutely. The board will set a date based on when the bids come in and they tell us.
Thank you.
Well, the dates are in the proposed contract. Page 2 says estimated invoice date, 5 for half of it,
Right,
5/15/2018, that's 3 months. a little over
that's
3
right,
months.
but that's not her point, I don't believe, Jack. Her point is, when is the money, the full amount due
When do we need
into our
to-
account?
This is what it says.
It's due for payment there, but it's not coming into our account before we make any money, before we make any payments. The money has to be in our account, the full amount,
So
and that's the
it
issue
would-
that she's.
It would have to be before May 15th.
No, the May 15th, as I understand, is actually.
So the point that you're getting at is, you're right, it has to be before that date. And what we've discussed is that the actual bid will go out and it'll be accepted. We have 5 days to agree with that bid. We have to review that bid proposal and the amounts of money and all that. At that point, I think the board would say, hey, this is the date the money is due, right? If they accept the contract. The money comes into and then when they invoice us, we pay it out of, so the full amount of money comes in. But you're right, the money has to be available by that one bid date.
The thing
Before
is, the money has to be available on the day we sign for the state to do the project. After that, the billing and all that stuff is a non-issue. The money's here. That's the whole thing is, once we say do it, we have to have that money, then we can say do it. That's it. After that, when they get paid is when they get paid. The estimated number or date, that's just an estimate. Ernie doesn't know, I'm sure. It's just, this is approximately when the billing is going to take place. But to move the project forward, once we accept the bid, and when we get ready to sign that document, we can't sign the document to do the whole project until we have the money in our coffers. That's just the way it's worded, and we couldn't expose the taxpayers to that.
Okay, is this all clear?
Just, I guess right now, this agreement, the municipal state agreement allows it to go out forward. Now, we have one more step after that, and that's when we agree to the bid price. That's that
That's
5-day
right,
period.
yeah. Because we can reject the project if we so chose. That's how then we're done, and then we'd only be obligated for their engineering costs or something.
Okay, there are 2 points that Diane Oliver brought up that we had actually changed in the contract. And he provided a new contract. He wanted to ensure that the number of that were lamps, street lamps that were gonna be put in was specified in the contract. He did that in this latest, thing that he got. And the other thing was the number of linear feet of sidewalk. He also did that in the contract. Those are those issues. Under section E of the agreement administration, item 3, it says we have the 5 business days. That's the one I just talked to you about. Under section governing law, I provided you copies of the law just in case you wanted to read that. And then under the municipal responsibilities, there's an issue there that talks about the town has to remove anything in the right of way. I've talked to Morris, and I believe Dave Stevens was in one day when we were talking about this, and we looked at the plans. The one thing that I can think of that we might have to remove, and maybe you folks can know better than I, it's the Veterans Monument. It looks pretty close to the right of way for the construction. So we're gonna have to check that out, make sure that if we have to move it, we'll move it. But
They should have brought that to your attention before now, because they've engineered that enough times.
well, I would have thought so too, but
Yeah.
you know, the other thing, just so that we can move beyond that without getting into a big discussion, I'm asking Ernie whether or not he'll be available on the 20th, because there's some things that we don't have to sign this tonight. And I thought there might be one last kind of questions that you have, and we bring it forward on the 20th for final approval. They need it signed no later than the first week in March, because they're going to advertise on February 14th, which kind of, you know, I wasn't reading it right. I thought that he meant March 14th, he was going to advertise. But apparently they advertise, but then they want the agreement signed before they actually accept bids.
Question? How about the dry hydrant down by the dam? Is that town?
Well, I didn't know about that, but
May or may not be in the right of way, I just don't.
I think you brought that up the other day when we were talking. No, someone did. I remember hearing about it, but I forgot about it.
Not gonna be widening there, are they? I think so.
We'll see.
can-
We'll check those. Those are issues that we can check out.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a good one, I hadn't thought of that.
The other issue, and it's specified in both Appendix B and a couple of places in this Section J, it requires the town to be responsible to keep new or replace rehabilitated pedestrian facilities and to keep them in usable condition, including snow and ice. And it's specified in Appendix B and this Section J. So we'll have to address that at some point in time.
Knew that was coming.
In the parking, maintaining them.
That raises a question. Does that mean that the town has to, by the time the sidewalk is completed, have a plan in place and funding in place to do the actual snow and ice removal?
That would be my understanding, I guess, but I'll ask Ernie, you know. But that when I read it, that was my understanding.
Because that's the way it's spelled out in here.
Yeah,
Very clearly.
yeah, that's
I
what
think we've asked him that question a few times, and he told us the town was not gonna be responsible, but.
We've had this discussion a number of times, always with the idea that the owners of the property would clear their sidewalks.
if we pass that ordinance.
Yeah,
If it ended up being required.
yeah.
This contract says the municipality is responsible.
Well, I mean,
Right, but you can carry out that responsibility in a
Number of different ways.
ways.
That's not gonna fly either.
Okay, and then Appendix B, again, specifies that same
In the
thing.
cities.
But it also specifies the replacement and repair of filters. I'm working with Charlie Bader. He'll be providing a letter to me, a draft here shortly. And then once we have that in place, you know, it'll be done before the February 20th, so that when if you agree to sign it, then we can take care of that. Now, Jack raised a number of questions. Jack, did you want to go through those?
Well, the one that we just talked about is the one I raised first. Then there are a couple more, 14 and 15 in particular. When applicable, the municipality agrees to regulate all entrances to the highway within the limits of the project in accordance with the provisions of state law. I don't know what those provisions are, but I
Can you address that?
assume somebody does. But then it says also, when applicable, the municipality agrees to limit all on-street parking for the parking spaces as designed and constructed under the project. That's gonna be fun,
Well, agreeing to and doing it.
huh?
You're right, agreeing to it and then doing it is two different things.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Who's gonna be first on the street when somebody parks in a spot that's not designated?
Well, you know, it doesn't, okay, this is Denny Kessel thinking. It doesn't say, or else, this is what will happen. So there's no, it just says you'll do it, but it doesn't say there's a consequence if we fail to do it.
But this is a contract.
I know,
And it
I'm just
says
saying.
The municipality agrees to.
That's right. So you agree to it. What happens if you don't do it?
What happens if you ignore any law? Yeah.
I mean, I agree.
This is the kind of thing that comes up each time these things come up, there's kind of a laughter.
No, I know, I agree that it's an important issue. I just don't know how to answer that issue.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but I won't like
Who
it.
would Ernie know?
I'll talk to Ernie about it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure he'll say you need a parking ordinance and you need to enforce it. Similar to the snow and ice removal. I'm pretty sure that that'll be the statement.
That would be the answer, is a parking ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, we talked
And
about,
enforce
part
it.
of the reason why we set aside the parking ordinance that before is. because
Wait
we're
till
waiting for this
the
to be
construction
done.
is completed and see
And then
what,
we
yeah.
have to make some decisions as to,
Yep.
we could, that's a discussion.
No, it is, but that's what I would respond. If I, to answer your question, that would be, but that's down the road. Any other questions there?
Jack, did you have any more?
Okay.
Are we good?
Well, on that particular issue, what I'll do is I'll attempt to contact, Morris, did you have any response to the control of entrance to the highways during the construction project?
That'd be easier because they don't put any water in it.
Right.
Driveway and all that good.
Yeah, we'll limit that, obviously, but in terms of controlling entrances to the other entrances to the highway, just any, okay. So, let me see, I want to make sure that I got all of them. I think I did. If you had any other issues, let me know. I will be talking to Ernie and emailing him back and forth. He's pretty busy. The only response I got back in the last week is 2 emails. So.
Does the board have to approve this? I see it calls for your signature.
Well, you would have to approve, you would have to vote to sign, the law authorize me to sign.
But we're gonna actually.
Next, on February 20th.
To this on the 20th.
Well, Ernie will be here on the 20th.
I'm gonna try to get him here.
And you can ask him whatever questions you've got.
Yeah, I'll try to get him here, but I will get answers to these questions.
Any more discussion on MDOT? Seeing none. Mr. Barrett, would you read the warrant, please?
Warrant 15, $37,603.23.
I'll make that motion.
Moved and seconded.
I have one question on it.
Go ahead.
Seemed like an awful big price for a circuit breaker. And I don't know, I'm not looking at it. I don't remember where it was, but it was up at Salt Sand Shed. Reset the breaker, it was 300 and something bucks or something.
They've had, I do know that they had problems up there with the door opening and closing, so they had to apparently replace that. That's what, you know, but that's pretty much.
They had replaced too.
Well, all it said was reset the, replace the breaker, okay.
Yeah. Does that say that on the warrant of the bill?
Service to overhead door, reset breaker on side of operator, ran door several times without issue in labor. $315 for
How much?
$315.
Was labor primarily?
it was all labor.
All labor.
Yeah, it looks like I want to be an electrician.
Well, travel time and whatever.
Yep. I have one question. Belgrade Dragon Masters.
Yes,
What is that? $2,217.
That's the excise tax.
it's only
We get
severance.
snowmobile money from the state and we.
We paid that to Ernie?
No.
No. Doesn't seem right, does it?
If they gave it to me as a donation, I'd donate it to the food pantry.
Thank you guys.
Take care, guys, thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, any more questions? Mr. Barrett?
Under library, Inc., number
Thank you.
16683, what is automated circulation?
It's on Library World.
Yeah.
It's a yearly subscription. Says unlimited number of patron and professional users to search and manage collection, full catalog module, mark, cataloging resources, complete circulation system of patron management, various features, inventory control and serials tracking system.
Software.
Yeah, it's a software, it's a license.
Okay.
Any more questions, gentlemen? Ricky?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor? And it's unanimous. Town managers report. Okay.
We have an invitation for all of the selectmen to attend a governance meeting of the RSU 18 on March 8th at 6 p.m. in the cafeteria of the Meslonsky Middle School. Just wanted to let you know that. We'll be reminding you as time comes up. It's one of those normal meetings, governance meetings.
I think I'll be all right.
Ricky will be there.
Yeah, so
Ricky will make it.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know that the Belgrade Regional Health Center received, we received notification that they were recognized as a Let Go site of distinction. I think it's a national recognition. And it's based on this whole Let's Go site is a childhood obesity prevention program that they run. So I thought that it was something that pretty neat. I have well, actually, it was brought to my attention about potentially having the Belgrade Board of Selectmen recognize the fire and rescue folks for their work on the night, I think it was January 18th, when there was both a fire and then 2 people went into the Belgrade stream. So I thought maybe what I'd do is take this request, bring it to you. If you approve it, what we'll do is prepare a plaque, and then we'll have a citation to accompany the plaque, if that's agreeable with you.
You can do Spirit of America with it.
Well, this would be a separate would be a separate kind of recognition.
No Spirit of America.
I know, but
I would go with the separate.
with the plaque and the,
Yep,
You're gonna be gone.
that they.
I would go for that. I
All
would.
right, that's fine.
Okay, is that okay?
Anybody? Yeah? Ricky, say yes.
Yes.
I ain't saying nothing.
Say yes.
The next question is on Spirit of America awards. Well, I think we have 8 awards that people have put in already. Do you approve those on a singular basis, or do you just accept any of the ones that come in? How do you handle that?
They've done the past is they proposed the names and the select boards voted on it.
Okay, I'll bring those forward to you before the next meeting, or no, at the next meeting or the first meeting in March, because there might be other awards coming in. I just wanted to make sure that I did that appropriately. I'm going to update you on a few of the actions we've taken in terms of code enforcement. The shoreline zoning violations on Sandy Cove, we resolved those. The individual has done most of the work, the reparation work that we required in our consent agreement that we sent him, and he paid a $4,000 penalty for that as well. He then filed the appropriate permits with the planning board, and they've been reviewed and approved. So that's been settled. The issue of the Knowles Road, the auto sales there, that particular issue, we sent a notice of violation and he didn't respond to it, so we had our lawyer send him a letter indicating there would potentially be a court action. He then responded to it in November, filed a permit application for a commercial development. So the application was incomplete. It was heard it was on the agenda several times before the planning board, and he didn't show up. They didn't show up. Our representative didn't show up. So I've turned it over to the lawyers just to have that taken care of. Brightside Marina, they filed a permit with the planning board. The planning board has reviewed the permit. There are a couple dimensional issues dealing with shoreline zoning, and that would potentially deny the permit for the development of that. But the applicant is seeking to see whether or not they can get a waiver, a variance waiver through the Board of Appeals.
Is that the purpose of the meeting on this one that's on the?
No, the February 8th meeting is primarily to elect a chair, and then there's another appeal that came to the board, the same one that came before it when Jay was chair, and they sent it back to the planning board. It was an amendment to the ordinance. Our town attorney essentially said no. Just information. To bring it up to you, Carol Johnson has indicated that if the board in the town is agreeable, she would be willing to swap some land to allow for 4 parking spaces in exchange for the land next to the dam there, that, you know, that portion of land that's there. I indicated to her that the town would have to approve that before anything, and then I'd have to research it more, just to put it on your plates for food for thought, right? But it would. She indicated that there would be available 4 more parking spaces should we get that land. Do that. I've talked to you before about the state funding the fund for efficient delivery of local and regional services. I've contacted the 5 towns and RS 18 superintendent to see whether or not they'd be interested in joining a group to file for a grant to look into issues that we may be able to work together on. I've gotten some favorable responses back on that, but nothing is going forward yet. The grant application is due April 1st, I think, or March 30th, no later than 4 o'clock.
Well, that's tight.
Yeah, we're moving it.
That's tight.
We'll see what happens. There's a snowstorm tomorrow, as I understand it, and the question is, I understand that when we close this office, all town facilities are closed with the exception of the transfer station. Is that a fair way of putting that? Okay. And we close generally when the state closes? So, well,
Martin's closed.
Martin's closed.
So,
or LL Bean.
We're going to watch that.
LL Bean is a better one, yeah.
We're going to watch that fairly closely, but we'll put it, based on what happens, we'll close when all of that occurs. The question I have is the transfer station. I don't think we've ever closed the transfer station for snow, but I don't know how bad it'll be tomorrow. And so laying that on your plate today to think about anyhow.
If you're gonna do this, make sure you give plenty of notice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Radios, whatever,
Yeah.
because that's been the big problem.
Yeah, on the transfer station.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was
Well, even here,
Yeah.
make sure it gets out there. We're gonna close at noontime, get it out at 10 o'clock in the morning.
if we know we're going to close it, yeah. We'll try to get it out as soon as we can on the radio.
You didn't know what time they were getting out yet.
Well, I really don't know how the storm's going to progress.
Me
So,
neither.
yeah.
May not be nothing.
Yeah.
That's why we got your generator.
That's right.
You can spend the night right here.
I'm more than willing to.
If the downpour to the transfer station were to close, I mean, the snow's not supposed to start until open at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Would they be open for 3 hours or?
Well, the question is, how bad is this storm going to get? They say it's going to be very intense, really quick moving, very intense, and it'll be out of here by 11 o'clock tomorrow night.
But it's snow, it's not wind. There is no wind component to it. So
and as long as the roads are kept clear, I assume that that's fine. I mean,
Wouldn't that policy we just passed take care of this? I mean, you and the chairman make a decision. If the snow gets so bad.
I'm just raising the issue.
Just so everybody knows, not just.
Yeah, that's separate.
I'm planning to go to the dump and
Well, we're closing it at 10 minutes out.
Don't get in my way.
I'm not looking to close the facilities. I just want to make sure that you're aware that this is, and I'm sure you were, but these are.
You're gonna close it, just send an email to everybody so we know what, if anybody asks, know what.
Yeah, that's
now,
true.
when it closes, it open up Thursday, is that?
No.
No, it'll be open on Saturday.
On
if the transfer
Saturday.
station closes.
Hold your garbage.
I thought I read something.
One thing that I thought was a great idea that Gary Mahler has.
I had a good idea?
Yeah, great idea. I think you just got to carry it out. There are a lot of services that offer a SMS system where you can push out information to the public that signs up, so that if they were to sign up for a text message, we could push out a text message that says, transfer station broken, closed. You know, obviously we go through the proper approach to do that, but at least everyone that signed up would get that. And that would be a good way to push out information to the public.
It wasn't on there, because I'd say so.
Okay. Anyhow, that's all I have.
Jack?
How about the sign out in front of the?
We will use it, obviously.
Well, the transfer station closed.
If in fact, yes, because we can do that remotely, we can do it, yes.
And it'll stop right on that, so it can stay there.
We can make it last for a few more seconds.
Right now, I mean, you might see something's going on.
Well, we'll slow it down. We'll slow the sign down.
Geez, don't slow it down anymore.
Or we'll speed it up.
Okay, are we done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Well, I got a question. I just want to ask. Go ahead. Let him go first.
Howard.
I'm wondering whether we have come to any conclusions for dealing with the potential or possible, let's put it that way, rejection of the LD1 funding. Talk about maybe we should have some plan in mind. I'm wondering if you have done that.
Well, we haven't come up with the actual plan yet because we're waiting for, but there, yeah, we will have, and we'll talk to you guys before we finalize, but we'll have suggested cuts to bring to the board to see if they agree, and move it forward then.
Will pulling that warrant, proposed warrant article.
It'll drop it by approximately $21,000 roughly. So that'll bring it down to about 38,000, something like that.
I'm just a little concerned when I see what we've got for accounting. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but Melanie, I think, did an excellent job. I believe it was Melanie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Putting together a look at the numbers from 2017. And frankly, if I had seen this prior to us starting to do the review of the budget, I would have been asking a lot more serious questions of the departments and why their funds were as high as they were. Because we had $225,000 of remaining money out of 2017. To me, that's a lot of cushion budgeting. And I don't understand how that got by, but
well,
I hope it's not going to happen again.
No, and that's the reason why we put the 2017 actuals next to the budget request. Our point is and we talked to this at meetings of the department heads. Our point is you need to budget. If there was a comment last board meeting about the librarian and how close, I think Mary made the comment, how close her budget actual was to the expenditure. That's what we have to move other departments to, and we were all surprised by the amount of remaining. And I've talked to each of them, each of the department heads about that. We understand some of the kind of differences, but we don't understand it all, and so that's what we're moving to gain an understanding of.
Ricky,
I'm fine.
you sure?
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off.
No, I'm fine. I'll ask another time.
I'd like you to ask tonight.
No, that's fine.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I got that.
Okay, and a second? Moving second, all those in favor? We are adjourned, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I won't be here next meeting. Mr. Barrett's got it. I'll be in Florida.
What?
What?
That's where I'll be.
Hey, look, they're cutting you one meeting short.